We can now move on to the second chapter, which deals with the beginnings. It's necessary to relax now and to understand the context with which you are absorbing information, and to understand that we are not as significant as we believe in the universe. It is the removal of the ego of humanity that creates an understanding that we are not as important as we think we are, and we are a group which has been given or has had the good fortune to be given life and awareness at a particular stage of the evolution of the planet. So visualize this: the formation of the sun. The most abundant of all elements in the universe is hydrogen. Hydrogen is in everything, within everything, and without everything. So if we look at the sun and the universe in the context of what we can see and what we cannot see, then we will find ourselves in an understanding that not because we cannot see something that it means that it is not there. A great philosopher, Immanuel Kant, in his theory of existentialism, created an understanding of many, which meant simply, for me to see an item, that item must reflect light. Because it does not reflect light, it doesn't mean that it does not exist. It only means that it cannot exist until it reflects light for me. And so I cannot see it. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's simple yet complex, and creates a situation where the old adage says, if a tree falls in a forest and you do not hear it, doesn't mean that it doesn't make a sound. And so the abundance of hydrogen in the area or the dark area, which creates a concept of dark matter, is an area which I will not go too deeply in at this point, but where I will create in time an understanding of the relevance. Let us look at the formation of the sun. The sun is formed by a process initially of fission, which means the two hydrogen atoms are coming together, connect with each other at great speed and velocity. That connection creates a commencement or beginning of a spark, let's call it that, which creates a fire in space. That fire or combustion, that spark, needs fuel to continue, as many other combustion activities in the universe. The provision of hydrogen atoms, which is the same atom that is used to create the H-bomb or the hydrogen bomb, gives you a very simple yet concise explanation of how the process continues. With that level of energy, there is a continuous creation of H-bombs, which grows bigger and bigger as it absorbs more and more hydrogen. This grouping of energy creates a situation where there is a central area which is hotter than the outer areas. This central area creates by a process called convection, a process by which the colder, unheated, unprocessed hydrogen atoms would come into the center, allowing themselves to be combusted or burned with a corresponding release of energy, which is called radiant energy, which is, in inverted commas, radiation. As you can tell in the explosion of hydrogen bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that created extreme amounts of radiation, and the radiation which is consistent with the radiation of an atomic bomb. This radiation that is apparent continues on until there is more and more convection as that ball becomes bigger and bigger, realizing the byproduct of radiation. And because it is in motion, which means that there are many angles by which the hydrogen is entering the sun or the system or the orb, it means that there is a convective or circular movement. That circular movement creates a motion of energy that many can call, or can be called, magnetism. This magnetism is a process, it enables the process of a continued concentric movement, and it allows the hydrogen ions or atoms to be more and more attracted to the central form, that is the sun, and continues to be combusted continuously, therefore providing the sun with a consistent amount of energy. This magnetism also creates a motion. That motion causes the sun itself to move around the universe, and that movement around the universe is, in a casual way, and I do not wish to go into too much complexity, but it is the sun, it enables the sun to find its food, which is more and more hydrogen, to enable more and more combustion. With that understanding, it's necessary now to look at how the sun disposes of the elements. There is a process by which an element evolves with heat and temperature, etc. It is a process called nuclear transmutation. It is a scientific process in physics and chemistry that allows you to understand how one item can become another. In ancient times, this theory was used in a process or in a general term called alchemy, and persons who looked at that were called alchemists. In this alchemistry, there was the undertaking to search for a means to change lead, Pb2+, into gold. This undertaking is a process by which the element loses certain parts of its system, which I don't want to go into at this point in time because I want it to be as simple as possible. It loses ions, electrons, protons, and those create the ability to take the form of another element. The process by which it loses these elements, or loses these protons and electrons, is a process which takes a lot of energy. And so, as the energy is within the sun, available in such grand quantities, it allows the simple hydrogen atom to transpose or transmutate to form other elements which are heavier than the initial hydrogen atom. What leaves the sun is radiation, gamma and beta rays, that are something which we see and experience, and alpha rays. Those rays leave the sun and allow us on Earth to enjoy food and energy and sunlight, etc. But let us concentrate on the sun itself. After a period of time, which I have indicated in my book precisely, the sun continues to absorb consistently the amount of energy and from the hydrogen atoms and other atoms. What's able to leave the sun is the energy. What happens is that the sun retains in the center those heavier ions or heavier atoms, which obviously through the convective process would repose or would find themselves in the center of the solar system, of the sun, or the solar ball. The energy that creates that compact ball continues to be derived until you arrive at a position called, which I call in my book, qualitative substantive intolerance. It is the time where the quantity of ions, or the iron ball, or the ball of atoms at the center, becomes so strong and so heavy and so disarming that the sun can no longer tolerate that ball in the center. This process continues until the sun, through the same process that we see in childbirth, where a woman has a child in her stomach, and through peristalsis, whatever process, the labor process, pushes the child out at the correct time. You see it in clouds, where the clouds become full with water, and then their hydration is so great that that process creates a process where it pushes it out as rain. That is very simply saying it, but it is in fact more complex than that. And that creation of the QSI, or qualitative substantive intolerance, allows for a greater understanding that over a period of time that this ball will be pushed out. In my theory of planetary evolution, it is this ball that is pushed out every period of time, let us say 3 billion years. Every time it is pushed out, you have the formation of a planet. So the first planet, after the ejection of the first ball of ions that we know comes out of a sun or solar system, is indeed the first planet that we call Mercury. Now, I want you to visualize this, that at this point you think of Mercury as an individual planet with its own form and permanent. It isn't. All of the other planets in the solar system have been at the point which Mercury is today. And so Venus was once at its Mercury or incubative stage. Earth was once at its Mercury or incubative stage, and Mars also, and so on. Once this planet is pushed out, then what is created is a situation where the sun, with the magnetism which is created from the convective currents that allow the sun to function and to feed itself, embraces the planet and, should I say, secures the planet in its rotation, and creating a situation where Mercury then revolves around the sun. This process, where the first planet was created, and created enabled for the formation of Mercury is what I call in my book the incubative stage of planetary development. This is the first stage, and it is a situation where the planet is ejected from a very high temperature source into outer space. This process, which has been coined by an old philosopher called Aristotle as antiperistasis, is a process by which the surface cools quickly, but what goes on in the center of the planet is the same. So what you have is that the same process of fusion and fission and splitting of the atoms that would have occurred in the sun continues on the planet, but is a process which is shielded by the outer surface. So it's similar to boiling an egg, and you remove the egg from the hot water and put it into cold water. The shell, or the albumen part of the egg, freezes or becomes a solid or semi-solid, and the center remains very soft and uncooked. It is this area that continues or provides the driving force for the development of the planet through its later evolutionary stages. We will attempt to go through that a little later, but it gives you an understanding as to how we can move from a basic planet, a basic sun, to having the first planet. This understanding, I must tell you, you must realize that every period of time, say, for argument's sake, every 3 billion years, you have a situation where a new planet is formed, thus removing from the closer area the planet which we know as Mercury, and through weakening of the forces of the sun at that period of time, pushes Mercury further out to form or generate another planet, or to be another planet, or to find another stage of its planetary evolution, and reaches where the other planet now takes its position to form Mercury. So you would have that after 6 billion years, the two planetary systems would have formed, one Mercury and one Venus.